A very, very good afternoon to all of you. I must first of all mention that Mr. Nair has given such a good perspective, a broad perspective about the entire safety management in the country, and he has not limited to any sector. Sir, your keynote address, you have covered everything which we talk about in safety. When I was listening to you, I got reminded of a famous saying of Bill Gates. Bill Gates mentioned that chief executives of the company must create environment, must create a culture in which sharing of bad news is propagated. What he meant to say is that internal disclosures should be very, very high. And the person who gives the bad news should not be punished, but should be rewarded. That's the key, be it in the field of safety, be it in the field of improving productivity, be it in the field of improving profitability. We must be able to bring to the surface the hidden things which we don't want to share. Now, these hidden things, if they don't come to the share, how do we address them? And most of the time, the person who gives the bad news in our society, in our cult, we paint that person black, stating that he is a negative person. So instead of applauding that person who is giving a bad news, cautioning us, telling us what sort of corrective actions we must take, what we do is we paint that person black, telling that this fellow is a negative person. That's what exactly Bill Gates said, sir, that not only internal disclosure should be encouraged, it is the job of chief executive to inculcate a climate so that internal disclosures are much more done, and the bearer of the bad news should be rewarded and not punished. Oh, okay. I come from oil industry, and therefore I will talk about the safety in petroleum industry. To a broad extent, you have covered everything. Anyway, hydrocarbon industry, and my talk is limited to the upstream companies, so those who are in exploration production, in the downstream refining sector, in the petrochemical sector. So I will cover the entire gamut of hydrocarbon industry, the entire hydrocarbon value chain. In other words, I will cover the safety in the entire hydrocarbon value chain. Let's have a look at to give you an example, to take you to, because there are many persons I thought who are not from hydrocarbon industry. These are the various refineries which are there in the country. There are about 22 refineries, of which 17 are in the public sector undertakings. There are 3 private sector refineries and 2 joint venture refineries, and 2 refineries are upcoming. They are at Paradip and are at Carlos. So presently we have 22 refineries in the country. The pipeline in India, is because we are dependent on crude oil. 80% of the crude is imported, balance 20% is indigenous production, and the product is also moved to the various nooks and corners of the country through pipeline. So crude pipeline is 8,650 kilometers spread across the length and breadth of the country. Product pipeline is almost 15,000 kilometers, which is spread across the. So therefore, the magnitude of the oil industry, is huge. Let's have a look at the crude oil and natural gas production in India. The crude oil production in India, there is indigenous crude oil production in India, and ONGC oil and some of the private players are in the field of exploration production. As on last 2010-2011, we had 37.7 million metric ton of crude oil production in India. Considering the last 5 years, the growth is about 17% in the production of crude oil. If you look at the natural gas production in India, currently, last year's figure, 2010-11, we are producing 52.2 billion cubic meter of natural gas in the country. And the increase, if you consider the last 6 years, is 62.2% increase in natural gas production. Refinery throughput, the current refinery capacity 2010-2011 is 206.1 million metric ton per annum. If you look at the last 6 years data, The increase in the refining capacity is 58.5%, huge increase in the refining capacity in the last 6 years. Pipeline throughput in terms of 1,000 metric ton, 131 million metric tons of pipeline throughput. That means products are moved throughout the country. Consumption of petroleum products is to the tune of 142 million metric ton per annum, and there is a growth of 17.4%. So if you have looked into the graph carefully, our refining capacity is 206 and our consumption is 142. There was a point